मेरे दिन का आगाज सुबह सवेरे हुआ।
Next stop will be Rugby.
पहुंचना था ग्लॉस्टर, स्लीपी टाउन, जहां एक इयन नामी शख्स के साथ मेरी इस खेत में मुलाकात थी।
अस्सलाम वालेकुम पाक व्हीलर्स, मैं हूं फैजान हक्की और आज मैं बहुत एक्साइटेड हूं क्योंकि आज हम एक जबरदस्त किस्त लेकर आपके सामने हाजिर हुए हैं। और मैंने सूट भी पहना हुआ है आपको बरतानिया के खेत खलियान दिखाने के लिए नहीं, मैं कोई 15-20 साल ये ख्वाहिश रखने के बाद बरतानिया की नंबर 1 ट्यूनिंग एंड परफॉर्मेंस पार्ट्स कंपनी लिचफील्ड को विजिट करने आया हूं। मैंने 2004 में पहली बार लिचफील्ड का नाम सुना था। 5th गियर के एक एपिसोड में इन्होंने Subaru Impreza Litchfield Type 25 Spec C रिवील की थी, which was an amazing Impreza of its time. But today they have grown into, well, Britain's number 1 tuning company. हम आपको आज JDM cars और ट्यूनिंग की दुनिया में ले चलेंगे। इन्होंने क्या-क्या चीजें बनाई हैं over the years। मेरी बड़ी ख्वाहिश थी कि मैं यहाँ पर आऊँ और देखूँ कि ये लोग क्या काम करते हैं। Nissan GTRs especially, Subaru Imprezas, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Porsches, McLarens, they all come to get souped up here. और आज मेरी मुलाकात इयन लिचफील्ड से है। लिचफील्ड के CEO हैं और फाउंडर भी हैं। CRX. What's this doing here?
GT1 race car that we just put together. Yeah, it's a lovely thing. We'll go racing.
Where's the V8 engine from?
It's from their Titan truck.
यहाँ नई गाड़ियों के अलावा पुरानी क्लासिक्स की भरमार थी, like the Jaguar C-Type and this strange and amazing Alpha.
They're brilliant. They're so fast because they do all the boring stuff perfectly. Take a lot of cars apart and we get to see how well made they are, and every detail's been thought about on the Porsche. The way it goes back together, the bolts you've used, the bracketry, everything is superbly engineered.
Is that not the case with British and Italian cars?
You don't need to be breaking the speed limit to enjoy the way the car feels.
Let's get in there and talk to Ian and find out the secret to his success. मैं इस वक्त मौजूद हूँ हाईफील्ड इंडस्ट्रियल पार्क में, जो कि लंदन से कुछ 2 घंटे के फासले पर है। और आज मैं यहाँ आ पहुंचा हूँ। लिचफील्ड ऑटोमोटिव ने अपनी रेपुटेशन बनाई Subaru Imprezas के साथ काम करते हुए, और आज वो बरतानिया में बल्कि दुनिया में Nissan GTRs, McLarens, Porsches, BMWs के परफॉर्मेंस पार्ट्स बनाते हैं। They're like an AMG or a Brabus. Just take a look around at the cars that are here. I don't think मैंने इससे ज़्यादा खूबसूरत McLaren कभी देखी है। 720S. Just stunning.
हर कार कलेक्शन में वो एक गाड़ी होती है ना, जो उस दिन की याद का थंबनेल बन जाती है। For me, this would be the one today.
There you have an Alpine. Of course, इनकी Formula 1 टीम भी है. Not a mass production car, but just enough production कि homologation series में ये लोग शामिल हो सकें. Lamborghinis, they do a lot of work with Lamborghinis, but more than anything, they are known for producing some of the world's best Nissan GTRs. Nismos come here to get souped up even more. And that's their famous Subaru Impreza Litchfield Type 25 Spec C, which I fell in love with. It's got 415 horsepower, which is a lot going on from that time, from its 2-liter engine. I think here's another one. Ferrari 488.
कौन कहता है कि फरारी सिर्फ रेड, ब्लू या येलो में अच्छी लगती हैं? I quite like them in silver, white and charcoal grey, of course.
जिस तरह से यानीमाइज ने रैपिंग में और अर्बन ने रेंज रोवर्स के बॉडी पार्ट्स में नाम कमाया, उसी तरह लिचफील्ड इज अ ट्यूनिंग कंपनी, अ हार्डकोर पार्ट्स मैन्युफैक्चरर. द टायर्स ऑन दिस थिंग almost slicks. I mean, this is a place where McLarens come to get souped up. लिचफील्ड जब आप गाड़ी को लेकर आते हैं तो सिर्फ पावर नहीं बढ़ाई जाती, उसकी हर एंगल से उसकी हर एस्पेक्ट को देखा जाता है. और हम इयन लिचफील्ड से आज जानेंगे the secret of this company's success.
एक बात तो साफ जाहिर हो गई कि इनके इंजन वर्क्स डिपार्टमेंट के आगे सबसे बड़ी लाइन होती है. But what gives them the edge?
Because this is something that we would all like to understand. इतनी जगहों पे पाकिस्तान में भी ये काम हो रहा है, मगर this is at the very highest level.
These guys are not known for conservative tuning, and they're really well-rounded.
LM750. You know what that means.
हम अपनी ओवर एक्साइटमेंट में डिस्टेंस को थोड़ा ओवर एस्टिमेट करते हुए जल्दी आ गए थे. Ian was rushing to conclude a morning meeting.
I envy the engineers who work here because these are the kind of people that grow up and go into Formula One.
मैं अपनी तरफ से बड़ा तैयार होकर आया था सीईओ से मिलने, पर इयन तो निहायत सादा इंसान निकले. Good on him. I had to say something nice.
I've been excited about coming here since 2004.
That was also true.
I've been doing it since I was 18. I started it.
You started the business at 18?
Yes. It paid our way through university.
Ian's story, not that he insists on telling it, is both touching and satisfying.
This one's almost got slicks on it.
Yeah, these are sort of drag radials on this one.
I'm always shocked that people tune these cars up to 1600 horsepower, but are they able to put their power down?
That's the frightening thing, is they can.
Really?
Yeah. So it needs a lot of work, a lot of careful control over power, traction, lots of upgrades, but it will put the power down.
How do you manage that? Of course, there's the engine tuning. You work with the ECU. What else do you modify when you're taking a car up to that kind of power?
So you naturally brake, so you can stop at the end of it all. Suspension, so wheels and tyres are changed and modified. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it.
So you started this operation at the age of 18. It paid for your university education.
Yep. We had a place in Tewkesbury, a car sales place where we were doing a lot of the Subarus. And then in 2008, we kind of sold our house in Cheltenham that we'd bought and moved into this farm. And then over the years, we've developed this farm, new buildings and everything else that goes with it. So we do a lot. These are all Nissan GTR engines waiting to go into cars.
So what do you do with an engine when it comes in? What's the discussion like? Somebody brings a GTR in.
It varies massively. So it will depend on what they want to have done. It could be a service of their existing engine, maybe a slight upgrade of stronger rods. That's quite popular.
तो समझ ये आया कि इनका सबसे पॉपुलर अपग्रेड स्टेज 4 पैकेज है, जिसमें पावर 640 हॉर्स पावर तक बढ़ाई जाती है और कहानी एल्यूमिनियम बिलेट इंजन ब्लॉक पर खत्म होती है.
And then you get to put your label on it too. Because it's no longer a Nissan engine, is it?
So Ryan's in charge of our engine department.
Hi Ryan, how are you?
So this is a rod conversion. So this has just got stronger rods, all blueprinted, all new bearings, gaskets, ready to go again with a 2-year warranty. And then we go all the way up to, this is the billet engine. So this starts out as a solid piece of billet aluminium, is then machined in Silverstone.
Really?
And then we have our own liners, parts, so this is much stronger, so we do quite a few of these now.
And how much could a block like that handle?
Well, you can just keep going. I mean, big numbers.
As people do?
Yes, so that Maltese car is running a billet engine we put in 18 months ago, and that's running 1600 horsepower.
What does it cost, this sort of an upgrade to the engine block?
A billet block would be, with all the rotating assembly, about £25,000, but then you're into cylinder heads, everything else, it probably comes to about £35,000–40,000 by the time it's all done.
So by the time everything is done, some of these GTRs cost as much as a McLaren, don't they?
Yeah, the people spend a fortune on it. Yeah, very big numbers. But then what else can you buy that's as fast? I mean, you need to be buying, well, a Chiron or something like that, and probably that isn't as quick. It's accelerated
Really?
as the GTR.
So these cars are actually able to put their power down. And what do you do to ensure that?
Well, obviously, better tyres, a better geometry setup, better suspension system. We've got a huge amount of work on the transmission to strengthen that. We use a company in New Zealand called Dodson. They supply all the parts. We assemble them here with some of our own parts as well. And then we do a lot of work in terms of the four-wheel drive system, how it's controlled, how much power we allow it to send to the front. So there's a lot that goes into it, a lot more than just fitting a powerful engine. That's just the start.
Do you guys make your own brakes?
No, we use a company called Alcon for the brakes.
Alcon.
They're very good, a British company, do a lot of motorsport cars, a lot of OEM stuff like Bentley, people like that. So.
I mean, Nissan GTRs and JDM cars, I understand, but when somebody brings in a McLaren,
Yes.
which has already, you know, been honed to perfection,
Yes.
what does one do?
Lots, lots and lots. We can tune those as well.
Really?
We've done 1,000 horsepower 720Ss. We do bigger turbos. We do more servicing work, repair work. There's a huge amount that goes into McLarens as well.
And does that, when you do it on this level, I'm sure it's reliable as well.
We've had no mechanical issues on McLaren. McLarens are really good mechanically. They can have some problems with the electronics and stuff,
Right.
but it's finding time, because we're so busy with customer work, it's finding time to work on our own cars. That's the problem. But yeah, we've got lots of nice cars. So there'll be a car on here later that you'll be able to film, and we can show you something on there.
Dyno.
Yeah.
You can see how properly things are done around here.
We have machine shop, fabrication department. So this is Scott, who's in charge of our
Hi Scott.
fabrication.
How are you doing?
It's me.
Meet you too.
So this is an intercooler for a GTR that we're making. So this is what we call our Race Plus system. This one. So for track day cars. So it's got CNC end tanks, top of the range core. Yeah, it's a work of art. And then Scott adds his magic. So again, starts out as solid pieces of aluminium, which is then machined because you get the best flow, strength, design, rather than having to fabricate it all.
And these things probably last forever.
Well, they should do, yeah. But they have to cope with a lot of power. This is designed to go on track cars. So it's the size of the core, the size of the fins, everything's been taken into account to allow airflow through the radiator. So maximise cooling for both the air going into the engine, but also the air going to cool the engine down as well.
You guys take part in the UK Time Attack Championship.
Well, we won it back in 2006 with a Subaru. And then that was in the pro class, and then only recently one of our customers won it again in his GTR 2022, I think it was. Again, we're so busy, it's really difficult to get time to go and do some of the motorsport stuff. We do a lot of track days for fun rather than competition. Lots of international GTR gearboxes.
And what's the basic upgrade for a car that's not going up to 1600 horsepower?
The most popular upgrade, we say what we call stage 4, which is all sort of bolt-on parts, bigger injectors, intakes, exhaust system, remap. It's about 640, 650 horsepower on a GTR.
And what does that cost?
Systems. It's around £4,000, £3,500, £4,000.
Quite affordable.
Yeah, well, a lot of people do it, so it works well, and it's sort of good value for money. Everything then becomes quite exponentially expensive for relatively little gain. Your brakes, intercoolers, all sorts of components, exhaust systems, manifolds. We try and focus on key models. So for us, it's the GTR, maybe the Toyota GR Yaris, McLaren, Porsche, BMW, and then we carry a good amount of stock. We're Krapovich's biggest UK dealer, so we carry a lot of Krapovich on the shelf. And obviously we have all our own components made, so we order in batches of 20, 30 components at a time. Because we're so busy, we're booked about 8 weeks ahead in our workshop.
Really?
We have to really focus on our key models, and at the moment that's the GTR, and unfortunately things like Subaru, even though I've got 4 or 5 Subarus myself, you become a jack of all trades, and you need to be focused on your key models. I could build 5 or 6 GTRs out of the parts we have here, so if somebody comes in with a problem, I can fix it. Those blue boxes are just our Nissan GTR brakes.
Really?
So just to be able to maintain, these are all our gearbox components through Dodson. These are all the brake discs we have to carry. So just to be able to be efficient, if somebody needs something, we need to have it on the shelf. They don't want to be waiting 8 weeks for Alcon to be able to redeliver. So we have a rolling stock order with quite a few of our suppliers to make sure we carry the stock needed to look after them. And then we have like our own custom parts. We've got our own intercoolers we fabricated. These are additional oil cooler, the original replacement oil cooler for the GTR. So we make all these ourselves. Scott makes all of this. So we carry those on the shelf. So if anyone needs one.
Handmade parts.
This is like the 3D printed parts that make up the new design, because this is, I think, our third iteration. We've managed to make it slightly larger again, so we can cool it down. We make all that pipe work from Goodrich. And then this is another complicated system. This is an additional radiator for the front of the GTR, and it incorporates another washer bottle. And again, Scott's fabricated all of that. So there's a huge amount of time and effort that goes into it.
Does he sign these parts off?
You should do.
He should.
It's a shame they hide it behind a bumper, really. To be efficient and organised, you have to have a good amount of stock.
Yeah. What large brake discs these are.
Yes. These are all engine blocks. And we make a lot of our own parts for the GTR. So these are all engine components, brake components. But we'll make things like new VVT units, slightly wider, to control the oil pressure better. Anything we think might help. And again, we carry everything you could possibly need for the engine on the shelf.
Oh, CRX.
Yes.
What's this doing here?
So one of our customers who has a lot of these cars, it was his first car, and when he saw this one, it was like a concourse version, he decided he'd better have one, so we just look after it. GT1 race car that we're just putting together. So Nissan built 5 GT1 shells, raced 4 of them. They won the FIA GT1 Championship back in 2011.
Really?
So it has to have a V8 engine. It has to be rear-wheel drive, so there's not an awful lot of GTR about it.
Where's the V8 engine from?
It's from their Titan truck, so it's a 5.6 litre Nissan V8 engine. And then it's on restrictors and things, so they can only be 600 horsepower, and it has to be rear-wheel drive. So we've got all the gearbox in, everything's done, we've got an engine, we've just got to finish the car. But again, it's time. Trying to find enough time to free some guys up to get back on it again. It's just a bit dirty at the moment, just needs a good clean.
A dirty car is a cool car. Completely race focused. Very large wing, back.
This will be quite extreme when it's on the track.
Restricted to 600 horsepower, yeah?
Yeah.
Homologation limits?
That was for the GT1 Championship, yeah.
You know, I just noticed my favorite car of all time is right behind you right now.
We got this one out of Silverstone Auctions.
Really? 500 SEC.
Yeah. It's a lovely car.
Have you done something to it?
No, we got this collected from auction, classic car auctions.
And is it very hard to maintain a car like this today?
It's tricky because it's difficult to get parts, but no, we can look after most things. It just takes a little while to get some of the components.
Ferrari 412.
Yes, we've got a couple of those here.
The first of their 4-seater cars, isn't it?
A brand new Turbo S in gloss white, and the customer is having matte white film fitted to it. So the guys are just installing that now. That's come straight from Porsche.
What's in there? Is that a Jaguar? Oh. They have a name for this sort of a windshield. What do they call it?
यहाँ नई गाड़ियों के अलावा पुरानी क्लासिक्स की भरमार थी, like the Jaguar C-Type and this strange and amazing Alpha.
Amazing colour.
Amazing color. Like from the late 70s and 80s, you know? It's like a Miami Vice car.
Just need the chest wig to go with it.
The chest wing.
Yeah.
But very Lamborghini Miura, you know?
Yes, it is. It's just like that. Oh. So it's a 1973 Montreal, 2.6 litre. Beautiful car.
Beautiful car. Part Miura, part Di Tommaso Pantera.
Yeah, exactly like
This
that.
is
An AC Fura, which is essentially a coupe-bodied AC
version of the
Cobra.
Shelby Cobra.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not the Daytona coupe that Peter Brock made with the roof on. This is different.
This is completely different.
This looks really sophisticated, man. Pininfarina design.
It's quite cool that it's sat next to something as modern as the LFA.
LFA, which is also one of my favorite cars.
Yeah.
It's sad, you know, when these cars came out, when they were new, nobody really bought them, especially in the UK.
No.
And then they want to import these 10 years later, like the NSX.
We looked to try to get like NSXR when they first came out.
Really?
But I think the Japanese quickly realised how rare and special they were. So you just couldn't get hold of one.
Really?
But now they're almost impossible to get.
It's one of those cars that Toyota lost money on because they just wanted to make something that special.
It's probably the best made car I've ever seen. Just the quality of the finish, the fit and finish. We take a lot of cars apart and work on a lot of cars, but that's on a whole different level to anything.
You're
else.
seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've seen everything.
Yeah, that's
So what really makes it so special?
just the quality of it. I think that's the thing. It drives well. It's not the fastest.
Yeah.
It makes a fantastic sound.
It does.
You can fault it in many ways, but it feels special. And then, like I say, the build quality is so good, and everything's
Really?
been thought about. It's got all sorts of silly Japanese touches on it. The ergonomics are awful, but it's great. It's just a really lovely car.
So they brought, and it probably has Toyota and Lexus reliability as well.
Yeah, and some, yeah. I think because it was a present to themselves, and I think because they probably knew they weren't going to make any money on the car, I think the gloves came off and they just thought, we'll just do everything we can.
Went all the way.
Everything's perfect, actually.
Enough to get a closer look. I guess I'll see it properly when I come to own one, you know.
Yeah.
There'll be that day as well. So
It's really nice Cayman that we're just detailing for him, just trying to bring it all back. So,
you have those specialists that can spot anything that might be wrong that eyes can't see.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, OCD for cars.
So,
Yeah.
do you have a blog? Do you
We have a company website and stuff. Yeah, I don't tend to do much.
might have a future in that too?
Got a face for radio, I think. More than we entered an event called Tuner Grand Prix, and we won the first event, and then we won the second event. We won both events.
Really?
But this was the car that won the second event, and it was a brand new Spec C, and I made two that I called GP editions. So we took our popular Type 20 model. We used a slightly larger turbo to give it 400 horsepower.
Right.
We put our track suspension on it rather than the road suspension. This car won the next Tuner Grand Prix up against some quite
I was going to ask
serious
you.
race cars, but it's just such a good car. So it's got bigger brakes, but you could just carry so much speed. It was like I did my Nürburgring race license in this car as well, so it was quite a special car.
Quite special.
And it was the last Spec C that I brought in. So it's a 2007, so it's quite a late one. I'd done my race license in this car. I'd won Tuner Grand Prix in this car.
Driving yourself.
Yeah, it was just a great car. And so when I got the opportunity to buy it back, but it's probably worth 30,000-40,000 pounds now.
That's it.
So this is an RAR. At the European spec cars that were 2 litre or 2.5 litre,
Right.
then the JDM cars were homologated. So you had the JDM STIs,
Right.
that had a 2 litre engine, completely different engine to the UK models.
Really?
It would rev much higher, rev to 8,000 RPM instead of about 7.5.
Same boxer engine.
It's same concept, but very different engine. So they had a different turbo that spooled up faster. They had an oil cooler for the engine, an oil cooler for the transmission.
See.
They had seam welded front strut towers. They had a slightly longer wheelbase. There was loads of things they changed on the Spec C over and above the normal STI.
Really?
So they could go racing. So you got the roof hatch in
Right.
there. Again,
I've seen that before.
because if you wanted to have a hatch in the desert, you could cut into the original one, but if the original car had a hatch, you could use it. So this were all the little tricks they would do. So this was the last of this generation of Subarus, which I think was the best generation.
I think so too.
Every now and again we drive this car just to reset. You drive A45s and all the latest hot hatches, and then you get back in this car and it's not as powerful. It's just amazing to drive. It's just raw. You can tell everything that's going on in it. It's amazing. But then Subaru brought out this special edition. So they brought out what they call the RA,
Yeah.
which was a Spec C with kind of their parts bin on it. So it comes with the front lip spoiler standard. It came with some subtly different wheels.
Not
it has-
subtly.
Yeah, very different wheel. It then had Bilstein suspension. It was different.
Really?
So it was the rear spoiler was different. These were all kind of optional extras that they kind of applied to one car from the
And
factory.
is it more for the track? Off a rally.
Slightly more focused for track use. And then it was so popular, they bring out 250 cars for the whole of Japan. And then the next year, they then brought out eventually this, which is the RAR. And this has bigger brakes, quite a few other differences. And so this is the last proper spec-C RAR from the factory.
Really?
This is probably worth £80,000 now.
And you haven't done anything to it?
Leave this one standard. This one we'll mess around with. I've changed the turbo on it. You only need to drive out of the car park to know. You can just tell what the car's like. There's this feedback from everything. Every component has some kind of organic feedback, which you don't get in a digital modern car. The steering has a different weight to it. You can tell what the tyres are doing. But as I said, you don't need to be going quick to know it. You can just tell before you even approach bends. You know what it's going to do. And you haven't even turned in at this point. Whereas a lot of modern cars, you have to kind of build up to it. You have to get used to it.
I wonder why they stopped making these now.
In the UK, they don't even sell the STI product anymore. And I think it's a massive wasted opportunity because you've only got to see how popular the GR Yaris has come, because there's a market for those kind of fun cars, which the Yaris does brilliantly.
Really?
The Subaru, they had that market. They developed the brand. They captured their audience, and they just allowed them.
They had the mythological battle going on with Mitsubishi.
They had everything needed.
Yeah.
And they chose, I think, because it was a relatively small car company. Then they moved to America, and they were selling so much product in America that they were like, well, why are we selling relatively a handful of these cars in Japan or Europe, UK, where we're selling thousands of Foresters and Outbacks and kind of mundane cars in the US. So from a business point of view, I get that, but I just feel they missed an opportunity. And then what would make it worse is every kind of motor show in Tokyo, they bring out a concept car and everyone would be like, that's amazing, I'd buy that. And then it never made it.
They never made it.
And you're like, well, it's like they can show you they know what to do.
Right.
Because all they're going to do is take this car and just modernise it a bit.
I'm sure there's still some enthusiasts left in that
that
company being run by accountants now.
Yeah.
2005 का 4 का मॉडल है, पर इसमें ब्रेक्स इसके देखिए, पीछे ब्रेम्बोज लगे हुए थे, आगे पोर्शा के ब्रेक्स थे. And this was something that came standard on the car.
So we found out that if you ordered the Porsche brakes from Porsche, they were extremely expensive. Right. If you ordered the Cup racing brakes for the GT3 cars, they were really cheap. And then they were missing the dust seals, but you could buy the dust seals separately really cheaply as well.
Really?
So then you could end up with a much bigger brake, and then we put a bigger rotor on it and had better braking all round. So that was something we did.
And you only thought to put those in the front?
Well, on this car, it's heavily biased on the front. You don't want to necessarily overbrake the rear anyway. It's the same caliper. It's just it was missing the dust seals that the road cars had.
Really?
And if you could buy the dust seals for a couple of pounds.
And save yourself how much?
A lot. I can't remember. It was hundreds and hundreds of pounds at the time.
Really?
So
just on the brakes.
yeah.
So guys, let's take a look at the engine bay. Ian had this cleaned up for us to take in. And this is just a 2-litre.
2 litre, yeah.
And some people say that the 2.5-litre engine was not as reliable as the 2-litre.
No, they were really quite weak. You could very easily break a piston on those. So even up to sort of 340, 350 horsepower would be too much for those.
How do companies manage to do that when they come out with a newer engine with weaker parts? I mean, why does that even happen?
Because it's not a homologated engine, so they're not under strain. That same engine is in WRX, Foresters, cars that aren't going to be abused, that are making 220 horsepower.
Right.
So they're going to be selling tens and tens of thousands of those engines. The cars that are actually going to break them is a relatively small number, and then the maths work out that you might as well carry on churning out this same engine that as enthusiasts we know is weak from a tuning point of view, but from the manufacturer it's just not worth changing.
Right.
But the homologated car that goes racing has a 2-litre engine that is completely different to anything else.
Could we possibly go for a ride in this?
Yeah, I'll find the keys.
All right, guys, this is a dream coming true. It's been well kept.
Yeah.
We've got an ECU data monitor inside.
That is 2003. Do you know what? I can't remember the last time I drove this car. Well, we drove it the other day just to get it all cleaned up.
Only on
this model also had the sprinklers for the intercoolers.
Yeah, so there's a button down here. You can spray the intercooler with it.
Was that Subaru just being fancy, or is
That
it
was their
necessary?
homologated thing as well.
Really?
So,
That
yeah.
came into the production car.
Yeah, yeah. So in order to have a water tank in the back, you needed to have it on the homologated rally car. So
It's a very charming little touch.
yeah, there's a lot of cool little things that it does.
This one doesn't have active yaw control, does it?
No. So
No.
it has a central differential, which it adjusts automatically, or you can bias it yourself. You can switch into manual mode, and you can use this roller to adjust where the torque split is. So it's about 60-40 in the auto mode, and then it apportions it backwards and forwards depending on what grip it has.
You can adjust that.
You can run it manually if you wanted to, but the automatic system does a really good job.
That was probably going to Litchfield.
That is a local customer.
I love how freely you can drive these cars, you know, the Evo and the Impreza.
Yeah, we've got some lovely roads local to us where you don't need to be breaking the speed limit to enjoy the way the car feels. So this has got a custom exhaust. In fact, Elliot, who makes our exhaust systems for us, he's ex-ProDrive, used to be one of the main fabricators at ProDrive doing all the rally cars, so he knows these inside out.
What's that?
Just the turbo.
Just the
spooling.
turbo spooling.
Yeah.
And I love that you don't need the fattest tires on this to handle like this, you know? It's more of a handler than a gripper.
And you get a lot more detail back through the steering wheel, so you know what the chassis is doing at all times. It's it's a fantastic car.
Many people say that the Evo 6 was the strongest of the Evo lineup. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the Evo 6 probably will go down. Maybe the Tommy Mackinnon 6.5 was probably the best. And then the Evo 7 and 8 were great cars, but I think,
I think 9 was better.
yeah,
Further evolution, you know?
yeah, but there's something about the original classic kind of Evo that was great. And I think the Evo 6 was the best looking car. We've got an
Best
Evo 6
looking.
at work. And that was the main rival.
For this.
And then the 7 probably for this. This is the best in terms of Subarus. This was the best I think they made, because after this they then switched to the hatchback,
Right.
and that was quite kind of dulled down in comparison,
Yeah.
a bit heavier. and
That
it
back
wasn't-
couldn't swing like
doesn't
this
work-
one's
doesn't-
good.
Doesn't work like this. But I think there was always a kind of a rivalry between the Evo and the Subaru.
Big one.
Sort of
Big rivalry.
communities, and I guess it comes down to what I prefer. The Subaru seemed to work better all round. I preferred the handling of the Subaru. The Evo system was a bit more contrived in the way it handled with the active yaw control and stuff.
Right.
In fact, the RS Evos, which don't have the active yaw control, were a nicer car to drive. I
Really?
think they're a lot more consistent, predictable. And I
This
think
one's
the Subaru
probably
were
not as sharp as the Evo
good.
on turns.
In terms of turning in, but that's kind of artificial on the
Right.
Evos because it's doing the rear wheel steering.
Right.
Whereas this is a lot more fluid in the way it works.
And this is, I think, nicer over the bumps.
Yeah, it was a better all-round car, I think.
I think so too.
And the engines and the gearboxes were extremely strong on the Japanese Imprezas, whereas on the Evo they weren't as strong on the engines. But they were both amazing cars.
And this one's won more rally championships, right?
Yeah, I think they have. Yeah, well, we did the Evos as well. In fact, we sold Mitsubishi UK their first Evo 7s. So we had some in the country before they did. They bought a few cars off us back in the day.
You've been in business that long.
We've been doing it a long time. Yeah.
From the age of 18, as I said earlier.
Yes. There's not many places that I can think of that have. They certainly don't have the level of equipment we have. The workshop facilities, the dynos, and some of the guys that we have working for us are extremely talented, and that makes a big difference. So even at like 2,000 RPM, you can hear the turbo spill.
And this is a single turbo, of course.
Yeah, twin scroll.
What,
Single
Garrett
turbo.
or some other brand?
But this is actually an EFR Borg Warner turbo that we've modified and made fit into the original housing, because we had such good success with them on the GTRs. We thought, well, we'll try it in the Subaru, so we put it in this.
It's not something we've sold to anyone else, but
This is something you must have done much later than 2004.
Oh yeah, we've done a few updates. There's a whole round of updates to come for this car, just because we can. We're probably going to change the turbo again. The problem we have is we're just so busy with other things that there's lots of things I'd like to do. It just doesn't make an awful lot of sense sometimes.
Do you guys do any work with Honda Type R's?
We used to. We don't do any more. Again, it's one of those cars we really like, but we just don't have the time, unfortunately. The new one's good.
Thank you. Have you ever thought of doing something which has nothing to do with Nissan?
We've been involved in enough projects for OEMs and small car manufacturers to know how hard that is. We do the engines for a company called Praga, which is a hypercar from Czech Republic, and that's an amazing car. That's all carbon fibre,
Really?
hypercar. It weighs less than 1,000 kilos. I drove that at Dunsfield Airfield, and which is the Top Gear test track, and that's the fastest car I've ever driven by a million miles.
No.
Yeah.
The fastest car you've ever driven?
Ever been in, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's so quick. And every time you think you're getting close to the limit, it just does more and more and more.
Really?
So in here we have our own body shop. We tend to do not so much like accident repairs, this is like colour changes, or we do like a spray-on clear film, like a protective film. This is the film here. So it gets sprayed on, it's like 8 layers of clear plastic, and then it solidifies in the oven. And then you can peel it off because there's no glue. So it's kind of vacuum formed around the panel. But if you can get an edge going, you can then peel it back off again.
Really?
But if once you've locked the original paint in with the plastic, you can then paint it any colour you like.
You have every generation of Skyline GTR here, don't you?
We do, but we we'd love to work on the R32s and 3s and 4s, but the reality is we can't, because there's so many components you need to look after them properly.
Right.
We just don't have the capacity to have everything on the shelf. So this is a good customer, he's got an R34, it's only paint work, we haven't had to buy any parts, but we don't tend to do servicing. If one of our bigger clients have one in their collection, we'll look after it for them, but we don't take on new jobs, because you don't necessarily know what you're going to get. You can put it on the ramp and immediately find a lot of things wrong, bearing in mind the age of the cars. You're going to find things that
And the way they've been used.
Absolutely, and then you're then waiting for parts, and that ramp can't be used for something else. You can get blinded by all the new stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You need to remember, whether it's with the Subarus or with our GTRs, is to remind yourself of what makes a great car. It doesn't have to be the fastest thing. It just needs to be, one of the best ones. From the outside, you think, well, I wouldn't want the Morgan. I wouldn't. It's not something I'm interested in. It's just not for me. But when you go to the factory and you see them hand making the panels,
Right.
hand making the chassis, you start to buy into. So now you're driving something that you understand. It doesn't need to be the quickest. It's quite a special thing.
Absolutely.
So, all the metrics will say it's not particularly good.
Yeah.
But when you see it being made, you can appreciate the effort that's gone into it. And they got better and better over time.
Now that you've mentioned Morgan, the van wall came to mind.
Right.
Top Gear did an episode about the van wall race car single-seater
Yes.
that you could buy a few years ago. They don't make those anymore.
No, I don't think so.
And I thought Morgan may have died a similar death.
No, Morgan's still going. Yeah, they're still going, and they've got outlets in India. I know that because at the time when we were looking at going to India, that was one of the options we were considering, is maybe taking Morgan to India.
Because India's getting back into the old heritage
I think it
cars,
was
the
just-
Royal Enfields and
Yeah.
so on.
So what we try and do is buy the cars and develop them ourselves, test them, use them daily, understand their quirks, develop new parts for them, and then they get released onto the market.
Such a good way of doing things, man.
I think it's the right way of doing it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're making customers guinea pigs. So you need to do it on your own stuff, really.
On fair terms.
Yes. It's difficult for me to appreciate the size of the population.
in Pakistan and India. It's, you know.
We're going through a phase where our economy is in the doldrums.
Yeah.
Small cars are not being sold, but surprisingly,
Yeah.
these amazing supercars are coming in bigger numbers than ever before.
Yes. Well, there seems like there's a huge population of wealthy people, and I think people like kind of conspicuous consumption, don't they? They like to show their wealth and what they do. And then, of course, when you modify a car, you're personalising it. So, it's, you know, your friend might have a GTR, but he won't have a GTR like you've got.
Yours.
Yeah. So that's an important reference. So this was our car originally. It was a black 992 Turbo S. And then we changed the colour with our paint protection scheme. So we can change to any colour we like. It's a peelable film. So we would have put plastic film, 8 layers of plastic on the original to protect the original paint. To get more depth to the colour, we actually paint the car silver, and then it's a red ink lacquer that goes over the top. And depending on how much of that red you put on, depends on how red it is. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a dull day today, but when the sun comes out, you can see the difference in colour between the dark shades and the light where the colour hits it. It just makes it more interesting.
How long did you keep it?
I had it for 18 months, 2 years probably, something like that.
Really?
And
Easy to live with?
They're brilliant. They're so fast because they do all the boring stuff perfectly.
Right.
Drives around nice and quiet, comfortable. But then when you put your foot down, this car does a quarter mile in like 9.5 seconds.
9.5. I'd heard
Yeah.
10.2.
Yeah, when it's modified, they're quick.
Modified,
really quick.
what sort of power levels are we talking?
This was up to 875 at one point.
875.
Yeah.
Can the chassis handle that? Can the engine block handle
Yeah,
that?
it's really good. At that sort of power level, it's fine. We take a lot of cars apart and we get to see how well made they are, and every detail has been thought about on the Porsche. The way it goes back together, the bolts you've used, the bracketry, everything is superbly engineered.
Is that not the case with British and Italian cars?
They're a little bit more haphazard, so we say.
Really?
Yeah. So they'll do random things though, that like the under trays, they might use one style of bolt at the front and a different style of bolt on the rear for no other reason than maybe two different people designed it. And so it's just stupid things like that, really.
How come they've not come around to getting on top of these things?
Well, I think a lot of these cars maybe are perfect in the CAD model when the engineer designs it, and then they actually put it into production and they might realise they need to do something slightly different, and it's maybe not as well thought out thereafter. It's just, you can tell, like on a Porsche, it's millimetre perfect. Everything fits correctly. There's a bracket, there's a hole, there's a bolt specifically to do the job, really? And this is extremely well made. Which
is, I think, the best part of evolution rather than revolution.
Yes, they can keep chipping away at it rather than, I don't know, we'll use McLaren as an example. They might produce a whole new model and then they're starting from scratch.
Right.
And they won't come unstuck with the big ticket items. It'll be silly things like water ingress if you're washing the car in a certain way, and stuff like that can happen on the early cars. So, and obviously Porsche have done that a long time ago. They've got that.
They're not eccentric like that.
No, they're quite conservative with their changes.
Is the GTR a reliable car? Is it a well-designed car, like you said the Porsches were?
Very, very reliable.
Really?
Yeah, very reliable. They have problems, but then they're used. You've got to remember these cars are used enthusiastically. So,
right.
And some of them are getting quite old now.
Right.
So you're going to have wear and tear items. But if they're well looked after and people don't take liberties with them, then they're extremely reliable. Yeah. As I said before, we did our LM20 with 675 horsepower back in 2016-17. Right. We gave it a 3-year warranty. We have had no issues with those. They've been fantastic, still today. So if the modifications are done right, and a lot of thought and testing's gone into it, making numbers is quite easy.
It's quite easy.
Making it reliable, drive well is the bit that takes the time. So.
बरतानवियों की सबसे अच्छी बात मुझे लगती है कि हर चीज़ को थोड़ा सा अंडरस्टेट करते हैं, ओवरस्टेट नहीं करते. Now Ian has made quite a case for this M2 that he's worked on, taking it up to 600 horsepower. It's going to be the first Litchfield that I'll get to drive myself. Ooh, are these the standard seats it comes with? Yeah. Really? Press clutch for ready to drive.
That's it. You should.
That's no factory exhaust. Clutch is a bit to the right.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to sound like that?
Yeah, these have been parked up for a while.
follow that road.
Right.
If you go in the right-hand lane, just coming up in a minute, you can turn right when the lights go green. We just warm it up a little bit, just let it warm up, we can put our foot down on the way back. It's quite civilised, isn't it? But you're just trundling along.
Yeah. And probably begs to be thrashed a bit because there's not an awful lot of torque low down.
Yeah, you need to give it a little bit more.
Just like the old M5s, you know?
Yeah.
Warm it up gently.
Yes.
And once it gets up to temperature, give it the beans. The suspension is a bit hard,
Yeah.
you know, and
Quite
British
famous.
roads aren't the smoothest.
This is a particularly bad bit of road as well, so it's a good opportunity to test it. Once you get a bit more speed to it, then it's a bit more fluent. And also they need to
Sure.
warm up as well.
These cars, they lighten up with speed.
Yeah.
But it feels more hardcore for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
keep following
bigger
this road
wheels and-
all the way along. So then you'll go through some twisty bends in a bit, and you'll just feel a bit more of the chassis then.
Sweet.
At least it's not raining. It makes a
Thank
change.
God, man. I wouldn't have. I would have advised you against, letting me out in this then. Is that a speed breaker? No.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So we have, you can hear a binging in the background. We have now in Europe speed limits where the manufacturers have to make the car make a noise
Right.
when you go over the speed limit. And in July, supposedly they're going to have it so that the car will actually start pulling power back.
No.
If you go over the speed limit, you can override it,
Right.
but the car will try and pull power back. So that's
It's
gonna
all
be
going that
interesting.
way, man.
It's going to be interesting. I think these older cars are going to become extremely popular.
Extremely. Personally, I like to drive the cars gently and never be harsh on the brakes or the clutch, and just feel the performance here and there. Having it in reserve is a good feeling,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
So you just follow this road along. You can go much quicker down here.
Whoa! The way that came. We're talking 600 horses here. Very easily delivered.
Yeah, it's smooth, isn't it?
Oof.
So you're in the normal mode at the moment. We'll turn round and we'll put it into the sport mode, and then you can enjoy it a little bit more on the way back through.
Oh, these country roads are the best.
There are some great roads around here. So you've just got these lights, you've got to wait at here. There you go. You can go now.
The way the signaling works here is a bit different, So still taking some getting used to.
Yeah. So at this like little junction here, if you just press the M1 button on the steering wheel, that's kind of jumped straight to
Sport,
sport mode.
really.
Okay.
We're in it.
That's it.
Second gear.
So we'll get past these traffic lights. Just gotta wait here on roads. When it's red light, you have to wait. There you go.
Clutch doesn't feel brutal.
No. go through these bends now, and then we'll go around the left-hand bend. If you have it in third gear, you'll then be able to appreciate how it pulls from low down. But it's a little bit further on. There'll be a nice straight bit you can go through.
That much power will take a little while to get used to. If this was, tuned, standard tune, it would have been easier to use more of it, Yeah.
It's getting a busy time of day now.
Feels like a supercar, man. How was it, Moise?
Crazy.
I mean, you just got a sense of how crazy it can get.
Super fast. Left in, sit, and then just follow this road all the way along. And eventually you'll come to a roundabout, but just keep going down this road.
Which takes us back to Litchfield, right?
Yeah, we're just in here, so.
Oof. 600 is a lot of horses, man.
640.
But this feels faster than a C63,
Yeah. It's got a lot more torque, that's why.
More than those.
Yeah, a lot more.
Man, thanks for this.
It's alright.
Thanks for this. I mean, the tour was great, but to be doing this with you is...
There you go, man. So do you have the traffic light system in?
Oh yeah.
You do? Is it more of a suggestion though than that?
Well, in my city of Karachi, where everyone takes liberties, it's more of a suggestion.
Yeah.
If you don't see anything coming, you just go.
Yeah.
But in other cities, they take a picture of you and they send it to you with the ticket. I just put it back in M.
Yeah.
Your remaining range is very low. Should I search for petrol stations nearby?
No.
Okay, let me know at any time if you would like to go to a petrol station.
It's a bit much, isn't it? I'd rather just not have somebody talk to me.
No, man. Still not used to that. Came in nice and late there. Fourth gear.
I remember the first time we drove the Nissan GTR and I drove it back from the docks and I'm just thinking to myself, you don't need anything faster than this. It's 480 horsepower, it's as fast as you could ever want to go. This gearbox is ridiculous. And now we're doing crazy horsepower.
Man, my point of comfort is 300 horsepower.
Yeah.
That's good enough, you know? You get to do everything with that. Just have a light enough car.
Yeah.
I love light cars.
Just after this sign, you're over our turning, if you start indicating now, it's just really tight into this.
Whereas Pakistani drivers really shine is getting our cars into tiny spaces and getting out.
Getting out, perfect,
We're
yeah.
extremely, because the liberties that we've taken as kids learning driving were just insane, you know. So foot on the brake and
Just turn off, yeah, it's just going to handbrake up, that's it.
cool, man. Wonderful, man. Thank you for having us. और इसके साथ ही हमारी लिचफील्ड ऑटोमोटिव पे आज की बड़ी एक्साइटिंग, कम से कम मेरे लिए तो बहुत ही एक्साइटिंग एपिसोड का इख्तिताम हुआ। मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि आपको मज़ा आया होगा। सब्सक्राइब कीजिए, लाइक कीजिए, शेयर कीजिए अपने दोस्तों के साथ और लिचफील्ड ऑटोमोटिव जैसी कंपनीज को मौका दीजिए कि आपकी खिदमत कर सकें। I'll see you next time in another episode somewhere in Britain.
Only on PakWheels.